What the fuck? Cancel. Okay. I am recording. Hold on.
Mhm.
All right. Manage broadcast. Select existing. Okay.
All right, everybody, time for a game. What shall it be? Bobbing for apples?
Charades? Of course. Wake the dead.
Wake the dead! Wake the dead! Out to the cemetery! Come on, everyone!
I've never played this before. How does it go?
Did you bring a shovel?
Wake the dead! Wake the dead! Uncle Atlas, wake up! Come on, Aunt Laborgia, wake up!
No. Children, you have to dig. That's half the fun.
Wake up, Grandpa Adams. It's Halloween.
Children, look! Great Aunt Lavinia! She was beheaded by her own children!
Yay!
All right. Hello. Welcome to Wake the Dead. Today we are joined by my good friend, James Cordiner. Welcome, James. Hello.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, well, it's great. I mean, I'm glad that we were able to make time for this. Um, the This topic is like what we talk about when we're just being friends on the phone, and we kind of like have been going around with the idea maybe we should do this series. Maybe we should like talk about parenting in the New World Order, right? Like we are aware adults and we have children, and the rest of the world is just a bunch of children, because they had bad parents, and like we had bad parents, and like we're recovering from that, and like we've learned these things, and like we can share. Nobody's talking about this stuff. Everybody wants to say, ooh, look at the dumpster fire, look at the dumpster fire. And nobody wants to like say, well, how do we keep it from pouring more gasoline on the dumpster fire of life? Really, if we want freedom to happen, if freedom is our goal, then we need to teach our kids what it is to be free and to recognize their own sovereignty, and how, and also how do you be a good parent and have authority over your child but still raise him to be an anarchist. Like, this is a fine line to walk that we talk about all the time. So I'm glad that you're here to share with my audience, and hello to your audience as well, because
Yeah.
this will be broadcast to your Voluntaryist Academy as well. And while we're at it, tell people where they can find you, and
Right.
say hello.
Oh, hey. I'm James Cordiner, the professor at Voluntaryist Academy. The little project of mine that I've been kind of working on for the last couple years, and it's I think going pretty well. I'm having a lot of fun. Really dedicated to the message. Really, what Voluntarist Academy's mission is to explore the philosophy of voluntarism, which is based in natural law, and it's based in the principles of natural law. And to make sure that I get this out, it's largely based in the non-aggression principle, swiftly followed by the self-defense principle. And well, Sean's got my website, up there.
Yes, I'm sharing that there. This is Voluntarist Academy.
Yep. Voluntarism is the moral, like it says, it's the moral position that maintains that no peaceful person can can justly be submitted to the control of others in the absence of their own, his or own consent. So yeah,
Right.
and so voluntaristacademy.com is my website, and Voluntarist Academy on YouTube. And what I do
Right
there
here
is
as well.
I do a lot of
Voluntarist
readings
Academy.
of past, essays and even books, whole books on the matters of anarchism through history, and try to provide people with the grammar so the logic can happen and then the rhetoric can happen. I have some interviews and stuff like that on my YouTube channel, and a lot of fun stuff going on. So yeah, hop on over there and check it out. Some history lesson in
That's
there.
great. Yeah, it's great that you're reading the books because nobody likes to read. And everybody wants to, yes, I'm an anarchist, but I mean, do we really have we learned the principles?
Well,
Like, have we,
yeah, the goal is
it's good.
that like in my day job, I drive a truck all day, and I love nothing more than an audiobook. So, I mean, yeah, the books can be pretty intimidating, but with the elimination of excuses, so oh, I don't have time. Well, maybe you have like 25 minutes here and there while you're doing the dishes or mowing the lawn, and you want to learn a little bit more about Lysander Spooner or Auburn Herbert or Murray Rothbard, and you can come into my channel, and maybe there's a thing or two about them there in their own words, not just me explaining what they said. I just read their words. And lately, with my Men Against the State series, I've been trying to have more of my own commentary in there, because it's important to kind of uh, do these brief asides where you, I get to show the audience how even in the modern day, the same things apply in the modern day that some of these guys like Lysander Spooner were talking about 150 years ago.
Right.
The overall goal is to try to drill into people's heads that this is not a new idea. And if only we could, start acting a little bit better and start respecting people's natural law rights and being more principled in our approach to our day to day lives and understand that, you know, men don't make laws, that God made law, and that's natural law. And we ought to, yes, we ought to live according to said law
Mhm.
because, I mean, anything else is just a violation of other people's rights. And how would you like it if that were done to you?
Right. Well said. Yeah, that's well said. And that's why it's great to be able to call and talk to you, because to have you as a friend. And so this, like we're done sharing that. So we can find you at voluntaristacademy.com and at YouTube.
Yeah.
And your show is on Spotify as well
Yeah.
when you broadcast your audio. Um,
hmm Well, you can
and
find the videos on Spotify too.
right,
I
yes,
post the videos there.
right. I forgot that they do video now.
Yeah.
And so that, and plus you're on the One Great Work Network.
Yeah.
You're a fellow there.
Yep.
And so people, I will have lots of links for people to find you.
Well, thank you.
All right. So let's get into it here. So the idea is, how do we like protect our kids? How do we raise them in a way that they can be aware? A lot of it, that like a lot of what we had to deal with is unlearning the
Sure.
crap that was like shoveled into our heads. And if we can start fresh with a new brain, it's like so much more potential, in my opinion. Um, so you yourself, you have 3 kids, and you they have not seen the inside of a government school. Is that right?
No, that's correct. They,
God
they
bless you. Good going, man. That's tough these days.
Yeah, it's extremely difficult. And it's very emotionally taxing sometimes, and it's very draining on on just about every facet of life. that you can imagine, and it's easier for some than others, but we handle it uh, with some courage, and we just take it in stride. It's really important to us here at my house, between my wife and I, that our kids get a really good education and free from coercion and control from anyone else. I mean, we don't want to be coercive to our children, but there comes a time and place where you gotta get them to do stuff,
Right.
or else everyone's eating chocolate cake and ice cream for dinner and breakfast, and
Yeah. And then they're
these
puking in the afternoon, right?
sure
Yeah.
these like
Right.
typical type of cliche things I could throw out there, but um,
Right.
y- you tend to just kind of surround yourself with better food at that point. But anyways, I digress from that. Yeah, it is very rewarding, but it's very difficult and it's a struggle because of the constant bombardment from outside influence saying that what we're doing is untraditional and unorthodox and all these
Right.
crazy, oh, your guys are crazy, and don't you want them to be socialized, and all this you know rhetoric, this typical cliche rhetoric that you hear from statists who don't see the way out of the cage.
They they are trained to think a certain way too. Like I've been watching, like, you know, guilty pleasure, I guess. I've been watching some law and crime on YouTube, and
Right.
it's always like the people like, oh, the parents took the kid into homeschool, and then a year later they're dead in like a, plastic bin in some backyard somewhere or whatever. And it's like, how could the system let this happen? And
Mm.
they kind of give that, it's kind of like the cops, bad boys. It's like training us into like, oh, authority's good. It's good to save the little girls who are like, being starved to death and stuff. Obviously, like I want them to be saved. Like, but the idea of having government come around and having government do the teaching, and like that is that's trained into our society. Do you agree?
Yeah, it's intergenerational cultural conditioning is what I like to
Right.
call it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be an intergenerational change that's going to be required in order to really break out of that kind of cultural conditioning. It does take time, and the truth is that yeah, parents who are abusing their kids shouldn't be allowed to do that. And
Yeah.
it's a very difficult thing from an anarchist point of view. Like, what do you do there? Well, I know if I were that person's neighbor, I would probably be able to sense more than likely that something was up, that something's just not right. And me being who I am, I wouldn't stay quiet about it. But who do you call? What do you do?
Right. See something, say something.
Because,
Right.
at the same time as like you could go to that little child's rescue. Man's law works in really incredibly stupid ways where you, having done the objectively right thing, could actually land you in some hot water with the fucking judicial system, the joke of a judicial
Right.
system that we have. So what,
Especially depending on what state you're in. Like,
right. So like it's very tricky. It's very tricky. I don't want to see kids getting abused.
of course not.
So there is in some way, shape, and form a need for public defense. You need to have a security there where a trained professional can go into a situation and kind of know exactly what to do. Now, I could be the trained professional as the neighbor, knowing natural law and knowing that I'm
Yeah.
not violating anybody's natural law rights by going in there and putting a stop to
Right.
abuse
Right.
of a child.
Like
But in
if
the current
hmm,
in the current state of things, that does not happen. It doesn't exist. So, I mean, what do we do? It's very, very tough. It's a very tough call.
right. It doesn't have to be the boss of that strong man that goes and saves the kid is some pedophile who's been on the Epstein tapes. Like, you know what I mean? Why is it that there can, and if if it's like a strong neighbor that goes and does it, that strong neighbor is not looking for the next chance to go do that. Like the government is always looking for a chance to give itself a reason for existence, you know? Um,
Yeah.
we can go on and on right there, but still, like, I mean, if it's a strong neighbor where it's not his job to beat people's heads every day, he's not going to go looking for that. He's only going to go into action when necessary, you know,
Yeah.
like a fireman. The fireman's not starting fires, you know.
Well,
I don't know. It not, in general, firemen don't like it. Let's hope, but still, you know what I'm saying. Like,
yeah, I do.
those people and the idea of what a fireman does and what a policeman does in the eyes of an anarchist is a huge difference. Like, you know, but the will of the person, like whether they're getting a paycheck or not, when I see these shows, these law and crime, and there's like some police officer with like he's got a camera on his chest and he's got his gun and he goes in there and he saves the baby or does whatever. I mean, that can happen. It doesn't have to be. Anyway, I'm repeating myself. I was going to have a point, but then I guess it
Well, I
kind
mean,
of
it's the
went mid
what
sentence.
I what I'm hearing is you drawing the difference between cheering for the life-saving actions of a child, and some people will cheer that it's a cop, and you might be the one cheering that a kid got saved.
Well, yes, what it is like that person, if they had a paycheck or not, they have the gun and the training and they're going in there. And if they don't get paid for it, they'll have to hash it out later with their boss. But they're going in there because they care. I assume, I've seen plenty of parole officers and stuff like over the years. Like it's tough to think that cops care, but I mean, really, when I see these videos, and like they're humans too, and they're like, oh my god, this woman got eaten alive by dogs, like, ugh, and then they're killing the dogs, and I'm like, yeah, kill the
Yeah,
dog. Meanwhile, I love dogs and I hate that cops shoot dogs. You know what I mean? But it's
right.
like it's a different way of getting that information in my head. My defenses are down, and I have to check myself like, oh wait, I love dogs. I hate cops. But anyway, like it's a subtle thing and we're trained into it. And so like if we're not sending our kid to public school, we're not training him to pledge allegiance and we're not allowing him to be trained as easily, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, public schools are they're the centers of the inculcation of obedience to the state, and if those centers can be avoided, that's the best case scenario. If they can't be avoided, as one of my I call him my hero because God bless him, he's resting in heaven now, and his legacy can't be tarnished by something like COVID. John Taylor Gatto um, is a hero of mine, and so he said that if you can't avoid public education system, then it's your life mission to throw sand in the gears whenever possible. And that's kind of what I nowadays, in my past, I've been pretty harsh in my rhetoric toward parents who send their kids to public school. And I'm just a guy. I can grow too, right? So it's nowadays I'm seeing it more in that light where you have got to understand that they're trying to kind of rip away pieces, if not the whole, of your child's individuality. And your job as as a parent, is to preserve that individuality of your child. And what better way to do that than to be a thorn in the side of the public school system that you, like it or not, have trouble avoiding. And that should be our mission because they are seeking to control, and that's not good. Now, seeking to educate, that's good. That's nothing. There's nothing wrong with that. For generations, for thousands of years, human beings have learned from their elders. They've learned from people in the community. That's how it village people, in every way, shape, and form that human society has existed, children have learned from the other people in the community. It's a natural kind of process of things. But when that starts to be under state control, now we're having a problem. And when that starts to be like I mentioned, inculcating obedience to that state, now we have a serious problem. And that's what we need to remind ourselves that we're up against. It's not the teachers, it's the state.
Right.
They just so happen to be working for the state. And we wish that they wouldn't, because the state doesn't have power if no one's willing to kind of work for them.
Yeah, right.
It would be a different kind of state. It'd be like
Yeah.
a state, a capital S state of like
these
freedom.
people, these like the good teachers that want to help kids and teach kids, they think the only place they can go is like, I mean,
That's why
maybe-
I mention it as an intergenerational cultural conditioning, because there was a time and place where the state did not have control over the education system, not in the manner in which it has today.
It wasn't long ago.
It wasn't too long ago at all.
Like, yeah.
And look at what happened to the literacy rates, for example, ever since the government got control of the public education system. There was never a public education system. It was just, you're going to go learn how to read and do math, and then once you learn how to read and do math, you can learn whatever you want after that. But whatever you want to learn, you can learn on your own. And now the centralized powers go, oh, well, if we wait until, if they waited until people were 20, 18, 20, 25 years old to start telling them that the state has power and that the state's in control, the government's a good thing, your brain is is getting to the point where it's either almost fully developed or it is fully developed by the age of 25. That's why I mentioned 18, 20, 25.
Right.
No one would be convinced that it's a good idea. No one. That's why they have kids go to kindergarten and they start when they're young, before they can ever think really for themselves. They're so impressionable. Oh my God. Talk about a ball of clay. It's a beautiful thing. And they're taking advantage of it. And they're
beautiful.
And they know what they're doing.
Too.
Yeah, they're doing it
so
very
easy.
intentionally.
Yeah.
They're intentionally taking control of children's minds.
Right. And you're saying like doing it young, and that gave me the flash of circumcision, like what they're doing young, the same idea. Like if they waited to be older to let them choose if they wanted to circumcise, everybody would always say no. There would be no circumcision. Like,
or to the very least, it would be voluntary.
At least that. And then I wouldn't have to harp about it so much. Like,
right. But
my only problem is because it's like against the will.
Right. It's a claim of ownership over another living being.
Exactly.
In this case, a child who
It's
cannot
domination.
consent, who does not even have language yet that we can understand, and they can't consent. So we consent for them. And when you're in that position, you hold a lot of power.
Yeah.
And in the same kind of vein, you're consenting for your child when you send them to public school.
Right.
You're consenting that the state gets to impress upon them an education. And you hold a lot of power when you're a parent. A lot. Right. And that power can go to some people's heads, and it can overwhelm others. And so, I mean, okay,
go ahead.
I was just going to wrap up this little tangent here by saying what I try to remind myself, because I have to worry a little bit about myself first, because being a parent, I'm the only father to my children. I mean it in kind of that aspect. I try to remind myself, and when I try to remind other people, especially men, is that you got to stay calm. Our role in our families as men, maybe this helps other men out there listening to this, who are fathers or going to be fathers or want to be fathers, or at least have a wife, and form some sort of familial bond with other people other than those blood related to you, until you have kids and then they're blood related to you. Anyways,
we hear you.
You got to stay calm. You got to remind yourself that you are the cornerstone on which the foundation of your family is built. You're the pillar holding it up, along with your wife, of course, but we have a special role of protector. And that's what you can't really protect if you're always out of sorts emotionally and intellectually, intelligently out of sorts. You got to be well balanced and you got to stay calm.
Yeah, you said that to me on the phone earlier. That's before we decided to do this today. Because I was freaking out. Like, I I will confess that my child is currently in public school, and I don't like it, but I consent to it. I guess. I guess it's like I can't even say the words without like giving that caveat at the end. So I mean, so as we have these discussions, we can get from both ends of the spectrum, right? From your uh, homeschool and from my frustration
Well, if
and
we're
disgust with my this. But I mean, you're not throwing shame on
no,
people like myself who
no,
have. I mean, my
absolutely not. I'm trying to
right,
encourage people such as yourself and others to recognize the power that you hold. And like John Taylor Gatto said, throw sand in the gears whenever possible,
right, right,
you know. And
and
I'll make a confession too, since we're in the mood to do so. I
okay,
I'm not the primary educator in my household. My wife is. So my
God
perspective
bless her.
is from the working dad who goes and fetches the money to pay for the house and all this stuff that we need. So I,
But that's
I
also part of the dad role.
but I take care of my job in the home education is not only provider of, all the what have you, the material and the home and whatever, but I do play an educator role as well. I take care of a lot of history and philosophy, of course.
Right,
My wheelhouse is natural law and anarchism and voluntarism. For Christ's sake, I run something called Voluntaryist Academy.
right.
So
Yeah,
I'm kind of, in that role, and my wife and I have a good rapport, and it's a very
that's
important
beautiful.
thing to have. Um,
Right,
and you know, part of my motivation for me personally of keeping my children out of public school is and yeah, people might call this a projection. In fact, one time I was told, well, how can you be so sure just because you had a bad experience in public school that your child would have a bad experience in public school? And I told that person, well, that's an interesting point. But what I was thinking, what I did not say out loud was, well, how can you be so sure that because you had a good experience in public school that your child would also have a good experience in public school?
good point.
What is so important about that point? Well, because it draws upon the individual rights, of a human being. And sure, we all share the same rights, but those still belong to that individual. Like that individual has their own body, like it's their property, and all the other rights stem from that. So why is it like
Hmm,
the public education experience is not tailor fit to the individual; it's fit to the collective.
exactly.
So we have nothing else but to realize that this is really just terrible. And so that's why one of the huge motivating factors behind why I do not consent to putting my children in public schools. And I'll caveat that by saying for the time being, because we might find ourselves in such financial turmoil that I, like many others, may not have any choice. Um, but I get a little crafty. So
Well, you've done really well building a foundation that you've kept building, and you haven't been letting it fall apart. You've been keeping it together, and that's very commendable. Um, So it's not really crafty, you know what I mean? It's like knowledge, you know what I mean? It's different than crafty. But
Well, I would sooner move and exhaust every known possible resource at my disposal before I ever gave in. And I'm lucky enough to have a wife who feels the same way.
that's good.
We really did such a poor quality education, and we might not have the same argument if it weren't. It's just such a poor quality education. Literacy rates are down,
You're
graduation
talking
rates are
about the public
down.
education out
Oh
there.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Excuse me. Yes, public
mhm,
education is poor in quality.
yeah.
Government-run schools are poor in quality, and it's just every possible statistic that you can think of is down. Uh, Math, literacy, history, graduate. I can't even say the word. Graduation rates are
Well, you
down.
didn't graduate, did you?
No, I dropped out.
Yeah, God bless you. Yeah, good.
No, no, no. The last grade I
I was just
completed in
making a
school
joke,
was
obviously.
eighth grade. That's the
Right.
last grade I completed in school, and then I had some family tragedies happen, and I kind of decided that it was no longer for me. Part of that decision was because it just never felt right for me, and pretty much the entire time I was in public education, government school, and um, I've always been the type of person that kind of thinks of others as I move about through this experience of life. And I even at that age of I was like 17, I realized that my continuing me being in public school, like I was just distracting other kids, and I don't know, I just felt bad for them, and I was like, I'll just get out of here. I don't need to hang out with you guys. I'll just see myself out.
Nice. Well, I mean, good thing you did. I mean, I remember the town where I met you, like when I was in high school. I went to an hour and a half of school every other day. That's how I got my graduation, like
Yeah.
because like their system was so messed up, I was able to find the flaws and like kind of make it. But I mean, I understand why you would stop. You had like a different experience than most of us in public school. I mean, public school dominates all of us, right?
Yeah.
But you more so than most. But there's many that are in the same boat as you,
Yep.
where you were prescribed, well, you were diagnosed with ADHD,
Yep.
and your they gave your mom a scenario and she had to choose.
Yeah, they gave her a really, really hard time.
Talk
And
about it.
she resisted. I'll stand up for my mom here. She resisted, and for a while, and they gave her a pretty hard time. And eventually, it became too much. She's a single mom, and just became too much. So she gave in, and they started giving me Ritalin when I was 9, and that changed to Adderall not too long after that. Um, and man, oh boy, that was something else. I mean, there was also another one called Concerta, which
Oh, I
was
heard
like
about that. I remember
which was
that.
like a newer one in like the early 2000s, or late 90s, early 2000s. But yeah, diagnosed in, I believe it was like 1998, and yeah, it was pretty interesting being given psychostimulants at that age. uh,
Right. So
and
who diagnosed you? Was it the teacher?
well, as it goes, yeah,
Or do
there's
you
a
want to talk about
diagnosis.
other, like the general instead of not just your life specifically? Do you want to talk about
Yeah, we're
like,
gonna talk about like, yeah, we'll talk about the general.
okay.
So as it typically goes, there's something called a Connor's scale of behavioral assessment. This is maybe outdated now. Maybe it's something called something else now, but back then this is what it was called. So Connor's scale of behavioral assessment, and basically it was 3 forms. One was given to the child, one was given to the parents, and one was given to the teachers. And it's like a multiple choice questionnaire. And it's largely based around academia. So if you were to look at it, you would see that it's largely based around academia. Most of the questions are set up. So if the kid's not behaving in school, then they have this diagnosis, this disorder. And of course, it's disorder because they're trying to keep an order. So anyone that's going against it is disorderly. And so
Right.
it's kind of, they make it sound like you're sick. And I don't necessarily think that you're sick. I just think that, ADHD is kind of a gift, and the world isn't. I think that I more so feel as though that people like myself that have been diagnosed with ADHD, like, I don't typically like to allude or to imply that it doesn't exist. I just think that it's overdiagnosed to get people on these psychostimulants that kind of zombify children. Um,
Yeah.
I think maybe I'm somebody who actually has it. Sometimes I think I actually have it, although I will never really know because it seems as though that the long-term effects of a psychostimulant like Adderall actually might give somebody ADHD.
Oh,
So if you're giving it
so
to
the
a
chicken
kid
or the
before,
egg, right?
yeah, yeah. So I don't know if the science would really support that theory, but it's a theory I've held for quite a long time.
Yeah.
Because basically what you're doing is you're tricking the dopamine receptor by giving someone Adderall, you're tricking the dopamine receptors in your brain into thinking that the endocrine system is providing enough dopamine to those receptors. And eventually when you do that for long enough, if you kick the drug, then then your brain's like, whoa, what the fuck? Where's all that dopamine? And your body's not going to know how to produce it for itself anymore. And it's going to take a
Right.
long time to recover from that. So what we're effectively doing is burning out dopamine receptors in people's brains and giving them low dopamine. And ADHD is long held believed to be associated with low dopamine. That's why the H hyperactive, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. The hyperactivity there is associated with low dopamine because dopamine is the reward chemical it's like when you're seeking out the reward, it's why it's called novelty seeking. And so when that's why kids are always running around, and ADHD is associated with hyperactive is a hyperactivity disorder because of the low dopamine. Dopamine is replenished when you're seeking out the reward. So kids are going to be running everywhere all the time, everywhere they go, motor mouth, all these different little things that they do. And yeah, and so and
So they're busy seeking dopamine instead of listening to the teacher,
well,
right?
yeah. I mean, it's about capturing their attention, and it's like training a dog. I hate to trivialize it like that, but you got
Dude,
to
I
learn what.
get it though. We all
But you
have
get
brains just like a dog. I get it. Yeah.
well. The point is that
Not the same brain, but go ahead.
um,
Yeah.
everybody's motivated by different things, and dogs are motivated by different things. You might have a dog that's motivated by treats or toys or
Right.
belly rubs or pats on the head, or you got to find what motivates the kid. You got to find what motivates the child into doing the things that the child needs to do. Very important for me to repeat what I just said. You have to find what motivates the child into doing the things the child needs to do, not what the adult needs the child to do or wants the child to do. It's our job to be stewards of these little people. And we need to influence them properly, and we need to be of good influence on them. And yeah, they need to do stuff. And if you let them just run loose all the time, they're gonna figure things out. And sometimes they might figure out how to get into trouble, and you might want to avoid that.
Just
And there's
gotta
all sorts
drug
of
them into submission.
well, there's all
That's right.
sorts of things. Well, yeah, but that's
I'm
the
just kidding.
state's response
Yeah,
to
right.
drug them into submission.
That's how they
And
do it for a long time for everybody. Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, back to the whole ADHD thing. Like, yeah, so being diagnosed at a young age and like always being told, like, so I had a really poor experience in school because like the teachers somehow found out that I was on drugs, that I was like,
The
because I would,
prescription drugs?
yeah, yeah, yeah. The Adderall was a prescription, and the teachers found out somehow. Um, Not really sure just exactly how they found out, but definitely because I was a hellion and I was not made to be put into public schools. And I was just supposed to be, you know, figuring it out. I was supposed to be doing other things, but I was in school instead. Doesn't mean I couldn't find a way to get educated. It just means that the way that I was being forced to get educated I wasn't a good fit for that model. And that's kind of the point, is that like more and more as time goes by, that's an outdated model. It's not going to work
Oh,
anymore. So, anyways,
we don't even have
they
factories anymore. What the hell? Like, but
so
anyway, go
this
ahead.
is just like a little bit of an anecdote. They found out that I was on the medication and they outed me in front of the other kids. So that was
Wow.
embarrassing. And they're not, and we tried to do something about it, and there was nothing we could do. Apparently, I don't know why. I was still too young to really understand all the ins and outs, but I'm pretty sure they lied to my parents and they scared my parents into thinking that there was nothing they could do. But I mean, this is the things that these people are capable of doing. So it was really kind of a weird experience for me to be on, these medications growing up. It
Right.
didn't really aid in my in fostering any sort of respect for the teachers, knowing that what they were capable of was borderline child abuse. And maybe your kid, if anyone listening to this, maybe your kid's different, don't be scared for your child. I would just be cautious of the teachers and their kind of sick thirst for control, and the way that they would, without hesitation, make an example out of another child and shame a child to gain control over the rest of the children in the classroom.
Yeah.
And to the teacher's defense in the matter, it's completely unfair that any one adult should be in control of fucking 20 plus children at any time. That's
Yeah.
not,
And they
that's
demand full control. If you're
in
not in,
that setting particularly, in that
yeah.
setting particularly, it does not, that's what I mean. The model is out of date. It's not going to work.
And the teacher, like I can relate, like when I was in elementary school, I was a fat kid and the gym teacher called me Butterball in front of everybody. It's funny, right?
Terrible.
You know, like, yeah. But I mean, to me, it was like, what the fuck? This adult is saying this shit, you know? And I still even have like, I had
Yeah.
in this job that I just left, like one of the bosses told me I'm effing weird. And I was like, hell
No.
no, you motherfucker. I didn't say anything to him, but I went to the higher ups and he had to go get a training and all this shit. Like, I'm not gonna put up with shit, But anyway, so like I can agree with I know how the teachers use the ridicule of the others to control, it's like a pecking order, right?
Well, I
Um,
mean, it's very easy to trick children into having a fight or flight response,
mm,
and to act out of self-preservation. And
right.
when you see, I mean, like it or not, when you see another child like across the room getting chastised hard, you're like, I'm glad that wasn't me. Holy shit, that looks rough.
Yeah, dude.
That's an
Yeah.
insane amount of power
My kid
over young people.
my kid is in kindergarten and he's already telling me a story about how this other kid in class got in quotes yelled at because he was thirsty and wanted some water. And now he's like, scared, but about like the
Yeah,
teacher gonna yell at him. And I'm like, oh my God, what the like he's only been like it's only November now, like tomorrow. Like he just started. And I'm like, oh, they're doing it. Oh, they're doing this. So like it's
well,
oh man.
you've done a good enough job that your kid senses that there's something up with that, and he comes to you and talks about it.
I
Other
love
kids
it.
would just be like, "Oh, that's just how things are going to go." But
I
you're
love it.
you're ahead of the curve, and
Thank you.
this is throwing sand in the gears, Sean.
Right. At least he's aware enough to recognize like this is a weird feeling, like
That ain't right.
yeah.
That's something.
Right.
Smells, something smells bad about that.
Right.
That's
And then he comes to, and he trusts me to tell him the truth. And it's, I do like, he'll like get all like really loud and he wants me to explain this image on the TV screen. And he's like, "What is that?" And he just listens. And I'm just like, "Well, this and that, blah, 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 blah. This is an AI image and they created this for this reason and this and that." And he's just like, whew. So at least, I mean, I do hold on to that. He trusts me and I'm telling him the truth. And so it like that's my like principled stance. Like I know that he has to go to that place. But like I will always tell him the truth, and I will tell him that he does not have to pledge allegiance, and he can think that he does and he can argue with me and I can tell him no, it's not, it doesn't have to be done, and sooner or later he'll come to he'll, he's just started, you know what I'm saying? Like the fear is just being instilled in him now. And so I'm like trying to help. I don't mean to take over, but I'm just
no, no,
saying,
no. It's
like,
fine. I would encourage you to find it important to be his guide
right,
through this stuff, and you know, yes, tell him the truth, but being imposing is not always what you intend to do, and sometimes you're not the one that's kind of allowed to determine whether or not you're being imposing. You know,
that's true.
so
He owns himself and his
yeah.
experience.
So it's important for you to be his guide
Right.
and to encourage him to think for himself. Never stop asking questions, never stop demanding answers. And if he wants to pledge allegiance, that's up to him.
That's true. It's his hand and his
And you
words.
can stand there by his side and say, "Hey, I'm never going to make you do that."
Right. I know if he does that, he doesn't really mean it because he
He doesn't
has no
understand it. He's
right.
6.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I tell him what the word allegiance means, and I
Sure.
tell him and I should relate it to him in words that he can understand. Like I'm real good with that. I'm
Yeah.
very descriptive.
It's
But
not only
anyway, like
allegiance, but like what he's pledging allegiance to,
is inanimate object. I know it's like, but what
what it
its symbol,
represents.
right? That whole
You know,
thing. Yeah. And like Grammy likes the flag. And
I like
yeah.
Grammy.
Yeah, right.
And in his
Yeah,
little
dude.
like 6-year-old logic, he's like A and
Right.
B and C, and I'm,
Right.
like
But
I like, yeah,
he knows that like both that he knows that I disagree with what she, but I'll never be mean to her for thinking that, um but he wants to see the conflict. He tries to start little, so he's going to be fun when he gets older. It's great.
sure,
But anyway, we're not, but this is a little example, listeners, of like how from both ends, like he's going to be James has this experience, and me from my end of having to see my son cognize these like the slavery that they're trying to
yeah,
induce into him. So like we can listen from both ends of the spectrum here, and like there's no shame on anybody, and like you know
if I asked
uh,
my oldest right now, like, what's the Pledge of Allegiance? You go, the what?
yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry,
great.
I'm sorry. It's just
No, really,
I
tell
think
a
about
story
him.
about how like like he asked you, he goes to you for the
Oh
truth
yeah,
too, you know what I
we
mean?
were
Like
we were at like a state fair, and we were watching a thing, like an event at the state fair, and they do the national anthem, and he doesn't he doesn't really know, like, I don't impress upon him to like do one thing or the other. It's just I
right,
don't participate in the ritual, so I think he just kind of follows my lead. But whatever the case may be, like he's just thinking for himself and he's just doing his own thing. He's staying around going, doesn't really pay any much mind to it. He's just doing his own thing, you know? So, I mean, maybe that's a success if he wants to
then
do it
he
when he's
asked
older.
you later what, like, right, he inquired about it later, right?
But,
He,
oh man, it's slipping my mind.
okay,
Um, well, well, it's
it's
been
okay.
discussed.
You
It's
told
been,
me that he was like, what is going on? Why are they all singing together like that? And
Well, you don't sing together. Like, there's some people that might, but like he no, he inquires about things all the time,
Right.
and it's really important to be as truthful as possible.
Right.
Given you don't want to scare people or whatever, but like it's
I have that
oh
problem, man.
man,
I don't scare people. Anyway, we don't need to talk about him specifically and what he said. Like, I don't mean to pry. I mean, but still,
no,
okay.
he gets curious and it's like, what is this? And I just tell him, it's a song and
Right.
it's called the national anthem and people do what they do. You don't have to do it. Kind of like what you're doing with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah.
This is typically what it
Yeah.
comes down to. Sorry, it just slipped my mind because like
It's all good. It's like, uh, my son is learning to use the word, like he's in arguments. He's telling other people that they were trained to think that way. And it's like he's using the way I talk. It's so fun. And like and like, anyway, I don't mean to talk so much, but so, okay, so this is like, we were all kids and we all had to deal with, so we can also, like, we're not only coming from the perspective of parent, we're coming from the perspective of kid. And, like, we really, like, when I was in school, I saw it as a domination. I couldn't, like, speak it out, but I could recognize it as such. And you were like, they dominated your brain.
well, they tried
And
everything else first
yeah,
and
like
nothing ever worked.
fear.
I was impervious to it. And I've always been very much like well, you got to kind of convince him that it was his idea. Like you got
Right.
to, like the Incredible Hulk, turning into this big giant green rage monster. It's like, well, you just got to aim it in the right direction and things will get done. Otherwise,
Right.
you're just gonna, destroy everything.
So
Um,
that's what you should do with an ADHD kid, right? Instead of drugging them, you should
yeah,
aim it.
well, there's probably a spectrum of severity, and I don't think that pharmaceutical drugs like the psychostimulants like Adderall are probably healthy for anyone. I think that there's an untapped potential in cannabis
Hmm.
for combating the symptoms of ADHD for particular people.
Interesting. And
Again,
it's not dopamine, it's a different receptors altogether.
yeah, and the calming effect that certain strains of cannabis might have on a person's body and brain.
And even CBD just without the
CBD,
THC.
yeah, it
Right.
doesn't even have to have a psychoactive element to it.
Right.
So CBD, again, untapped potential of cannabis.
Right.
So it's I think I think we're on the precipice of this discovery. I'm excited for the future for it because it's all natural and
Right.
it comes I mean it comes
You
from
can't get
yeah.
hurt from it. Like everybody's like, "Oh, you'd be schizophrenic if you do it all day." And I'm like,
Well, I
I know from experience. Like,
I'm not able to weigh in on that. I'm just simply speaking from
sure.
like from just like kind of like a you know, synthetic versus natural approach where it's
Oh,
like
I get it, dude.
yeah,
Yeah. They
like
can patent the Adderall, whatever drug for this many years, and then it becomes generic or whatever. But cannabis is generic from the get go. You can grow it yourself. Like everybody can get it.
the
Like it's
thing that's really disturbing to me about like Adderall in particular is so I got really curious after a while, like where did it come from?
good. Yeah. You want
Like
to talk
where
about
like
that?
what does Adderall mean? Like how does somebody come up with a word like Adderall? And what I discovered shocked me. Um, Apparently back in like the 70s, there was this drug called Obitrol, and it was a weight loss drug. And they couldn't ever really get FDA approval on it because they could never really prove that it was actually like that the drug was actually making people lose weight. in the function that it was supposed to do. Like it was,
It's an upper like cocaine. Like people that do a lot
well,
of coke lose weight, right? They're not eating, they're busy doing the drug instead.
I mean, it's amphetamine salts,
Right.
you know. So Obitrol eventually, like the company that owned the property of Obitrol, gets sold to another company, and then that company gets sold to another company, and they still have that property on the shelf, and they don't know what to do with it. So just like when a restaurant's going under, they rebrand, they get some new management, whatever. They slap a new name on the front, and now they got more customers. They changed the menu. Now you got more customers coming in the door. They think it's everyone's still the same people working there.
Right. No rats
And
in our kitchen
yeah,
anymore,
yeah, yeah,
guys. It's a new
yeah,
name.
yeah. It's a new name, new thing. And they repurposed it, and it comes out in 1996 under the name of Adderall. It's no longer Obitrol, it's Adderall, and it's going to help with the surge of ADHD in the 90s. And the name Adderall comes from the guy in charge of the pharmaceutical company that owned the property. The name Adderall is derived from the phrase ADD for all.
Mm.
And that was pretty shocking to me when I found that out. Um, it seemed to me as if like they were just kind of it's kind of like I don't know if revelation of the method is the proper thing to describe it as, but it's kind of like they were like telling people what they were doing with it. Like because
Well,
what
they got to
happens
get
next
funding
is
from all the Satanists. Satanists are like, "Oh yeah, that's good. Let's go with that. Fund that one." Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, oh no, for sure. I agree. But what happens next is really interesting because in 96 is when the drug comes out. Adderall, ADD for all that stuff, right? It gets FDA approval because now they're saying that it's going to help with with offsetting the low dopamine by getting the body to the dopamine receptors into thinking that it has they have received the proper amount of dopamine. Something called a it's not only a psychostimulant. There's another classification for the drug. It's called a dopamine agonist, which is what I just described. It's tricking the dopamine receptors into thinking that they're getting the proper amount. And through the endocrine system is all this other stuff. Dopamine's like a hormone. Uh, so that's why the endocrine system is important to keep in mind here, because like things like adrenaline and noradrenaline are involved in this. Testosterone, estrogen, all these things like are part of the endocrine system. And if that thing's not functioning properly or naturally, like even in one way of like dopamine, in my studies, what I've come to find is that like it's kind of like a balancing act, and you gotta have a good balance there. And if you're tipped over this way too much, then the scales are tipped, and like everything's gonna be thrown out of balance. You're gonna be in some you're
Because
gonna
your
be in
body
some
becomes like tolerant.
it
Because
becomes
like
reliant on a drug, an outside
yes,
influence to
right.
produce what the body is supposed to produce naturally.
Right. So like everybody, because the whole idea of like, oh, my brain chemicals are out of balance. That's the whole lie that the medical industry uses to drug you in the first place. Oh, your chemicals are out of balance. But really, we can see like with say people that use steroids all the time,
Sure.
and then their balls shrink. I
Yeah.
mean,
Or if
that's
like in Fight
literal
Club,
proof. Like, right? Okay,
remember
what were
that
you
movie
saying?
Fight Club
Yeah.
with Bob?
Oh, right, with the boob tit. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
Bob had bitch tits.
Right. I knew a kid literally, I saw with my own eyes a kid that went to jail and he had to stop doing steroids immediately because he's in jail now. And one of his nipples popped out like 4 inches and
Jesus.
the other one was normal.
So,
I mean, we used to call him
um,
skim milk, dude. It was like, poor kid. Like, we really felt bad for him. I mean,
it's a terrible nickname.
it's terrible. It's really mean.
Yeah, it's really mean.
I didn't like
So,
participate really. It wasn't my idea. Whatever. But
so we,
it's real. It's like it does mess up like you do need a proper balance of testosterone and like
Mhm.
estrogen and like that shit. So that's kind of where they take that, and then they like, oh well, we can give you this serotonin reuptake inhibitor because
Yeah.
you're serotonin, and we know because and that's all just speculation, nothingness. And all psychiatrists admit there is no test, and you don't really can't tell.
Yep.
So
But
just
there's
wanted to put that out there. But there
oh,
is
for
like a
sure.
proof that if you're like even like a heroin junkie, like you got to use more and more and more heroin to even feel the effect anymore. Same thing with your dopamine. You got to use more and more and more to even feel the effect anymore because your receptors are burning out, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's just it. And the other thing that can happen is you get prescribed other drugs to counteract the side effects of like something like Adderall. And now you can't sleep because whatever, or you're not eating, and so now, okay, you're going to take this pill too. Well, I was lucky enough to never have that, but the reason why I never had that is because I knew they were going to try to do that. I didn't want to take the Adderall. I just was appeasing, my mother, and I was appeasing the doctor, and I was, trying to please. I was people pleasing, and I got
You're a kid.
so like every 6 months I'd be brought into the doctor's office, and they'd be like, "Oh, so how you doing? And you sleeping okay?" And it's like I lied because I knew I'm just gonna be put on more medication if I tell them the truth, and I'd rather fucking just deal with this shit than be put on more meds. It was tough. I was trying to get to the uh through the night, like I was trying to get to like the part of this whole thing that's like the reason why it's happening, right?
Oh, right. Do you want me to share that slide?
Yeah, yeah. So we're gonna have this. So this is they can see this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a slide from a presentation I gave about just over 3 years ago, at an event that me and my friend Joe Murray um, hosted, called Shattering the Illusion. And this is from my presentation at that event, and I named it ADHD, a modern attack on free thinkers. It's not to say that ADHD doesn't exist. Again, my whole thing, my argument is, and probably ever forever will be, that ADHD is being misdiagnosed in the millions. And so this is why I would like to, encourage parents to be on guard when it comes to a school telling you that your child has a disorder, because there's many outside factors that can go into what can be perceived as a disorder, dietary things and whatnot. But this chart shows 2003 to 2011, the the um, the increase of ADHD diagnoses. And there's a link that you can't click on the screen, but there's a URL that if you paused the screen right now and you searched it, that's the source. Okay, it's from the CDC. Okay, I'm trusting the science here.
Hmm.
All right. I'm going
Okay.
with the government source because
That's how you
and
prove to people.
so the interesting thing I'd like to point out is two interesting things I'd like to point out. And when you go and so in 2003, okay, that's really important to remember, 2003. And then I want you to remember 2016 through 2019, because 2016 we see a dramatic increase in the number of homeschooling going on. And this is when we finally see the numbers going down. Okay.
Hmm.
The number of ADHD diagnoses go down as homeschooling numbers are going up. And I'm not saying parents are neglecting their children. I'm sure many parents are still taking them to doctor visits and wellness visits and whatnot. but they're not seeing the symptoms of ADHD because they're homeschooling, and they're doing things. They are allowing, in some way, shape, or form, the child to write their own script in life. And so 2003 is very important to remember. And what we're seeing here is in the millions, 4.4 million diagnoses in 2003 alone. 4 years later, in 2007, we have 5.5 millions diagnosed. So in between, and then another 4 years later, in 2011, 6.4 million diagnosed by 2011. And so, yeah, I wanted to point that out. And if we can go to the next one, maybe just the next, the one with the
This one?
pink bar graph. Okay.
Okay, I got that
So
one.
this goes into a little bit
This
more
one?
explanation. Oh, no. Go back,
Okay.
please.
Yep. Here.
So this is the estimated number of children aged between 3 and 17 ever diagnosed with ADHD, according to the National Survey of Parents. Okay. That number is 6 million. Using the data from 2016 to 2019, this number includes 3 to 5. So this is just basically the breakdown, and it just goes on to show that boys are 13%, which is 13% of the pool, are more likely to be diagnosed with ADHD than girls. Okay, so 13% of the total number of children are diagnosed with are boys. I'm sorry, I'm getting the numbers all mixed up.
Right.
So, no. 13% of the child population that were diagnosed. All right, so the total population, 100%, 13% of them got diagnosed with ADHD, and they are boys. Okay, and then 6% are girls.
Of them was girls, right?
All right, and then it goes into demographics, which isn't really that important, but it goes to show that, like, it kind of just goes into the demographics there.
Right. But I've learned that ADHD presents later in females than in males. So I guess males start young with the symptoms.
Well, I mean, there could be
Supposedly.
many arguments to that, because the way the public education system is set up favors females.
Yeah, right.
So, anyways, if we want to go to the next one.
Okay, 1 second. Here.
Okay, so this is, I'll just read the slide for the people out there listening.
Okay.
I've labeled this slide "Stimulants: A Common Enemy." Okay, because it's all too common that this drug is being used. The chart explains, it's a bar graph that explains the amount of money being made from prescriptions between the years 2002 to 2012. And so this is the U.S. prescription stimulant sales. Okay. And although a wide variety of differing stimulant formulas were concocted for combating ADHD, Adderall emerged as the preferred drug among doctors and users. It was created largely by combining amphetamine salts. Additionally, the use of the drug quintupled between 1995 and 2008. As a direct result of the surge in legal supplies of the medication, there was a simultaneous rise in its non-medical and recreational use, particularly among high school and college students in highly competitive academic environments. So I want to draw attention again to the earliest year, 2002, and then quickly followed by 2003. For those people that are looking at the video, you'll see that the prescription stimulant sales for those 2 years were just below $2 billion with a B dollars. And they are the same each year. So it seems as though at that point in history, there was kind of a plateau, that it seemed like it was just leveling off at this amount in prescription sales for those 2 years. We'll just go off what the chart says. So 2003, so 2004, okay, it goes up, and it just keeps going up every year for the remainder of the decade that's being presented on the chart. 2003, again. So we have in the previous chart in 2003, diagnoses go up, and of course, because diagnoses are going to go up, then the prescriptions are going to be, selling more. They're going to sell more prescriptions. But what happened in 2003? Well, in order to understand that, we really have to go to 2001. And what happened in 2001 was George Bush signed the No Child Left Behind Act. And that act actually went into effect in 2003.
Right.
What's so important about this No Child Left Behind Act? Well, it kind of revamped the way that public schools could get federal funding. And I'm sure a lot of people remember, if they were in school back then, the implementation of standardized testing. And those tests, kind of they kind of took control of the curriculum, and the tests were the proof that the children were being educated and that the federal funding was going to go to the school. These tests proved that the teachers were doing their jobs by giving the kids the education that the federal government thought the kids needed. And if the test scores were coming back subpar, the teachers could lose their jobs. It could even go so far as the school system being completely, shut down. The administrators could lose their jobs eventually. It was kind of like a stepwise progression to this, this doom of that particular school district. And so this is what the threat from the federal government was.
Right. That's the stick, right? As opposed to the carrot.
So it's yeah. And so that's what the No Child Left Behind Act provided, was a threat of teachers losing their jobs and administrators losing their jobs, and federal governments coming into city-run schools and basically taking over. And they could even go so far as to shut down the district completely and integrate the children into surrounding districts. And it was hell for the teachers and for everyone.
And they were
This
just
brings me
teaching them
back.
how to pass the test, not how to learn the lessons, right?
Yeah. So this brings me back to what I mentioned earlier, the Connor scale of behavioral assessment and the teacher's role in that. And if the kids were misbehaving and the teacher's line is on the job, they have an incentive to fill out that form, which is heavily tipped in the favor of academia, and filling out that form to get these children diagnosed with ADHD and putting them on these drugs and getting them to sit down and shut up and take the lesson.
Right.
And I think more people should know about this history. Because it's still going on today. I know that these charts are a little outdated, especially the pink one here. This bar graph is pretty outdated. I would expect it to at least have plateaued. In 2012, there was $9 billion in prescription stimulant sales made, compared to a decade earlier of 1.8 billion. So it went up a lot, like a lot.
Yeah, I bet.
Almost tenfold. So,
and people, like, when I was like in the 90s, people were using it recreationally in high school. I remember that firsthand. And then when I grew older, uh people go like doctor shopping. They're like, oh, this one, oh, that one, oh, which one will give me, they want the Adderall to stay awake, and then they want the Xanax to go to sleep,
yeah.
and whatever doctor will give them that, then fine. So like it gets them started as a customer in the
Mhm.
90s.
Well, the other effect that something like Adderall or would have is on a young child is you're messing with their biochemical balance, and it's not a brain imbalance, like the chemicals in the brain. The brain is just the receiver. The chemicals are made in the gut and in other glands throughout your body. and then those chemicals get sent to the brain. So what we're dealing with is, like I mentioned a little earlier, about different things in the like environmental factors such as diet that could be leading to the symptoms, that and then leading to the misdiagnosis. Then there's other things too, like stable home life and things like that. Um the symptoms of ADHD do manifest in an unstable child, who hasn't been exposed to a stable home life. For instance, like parents that are always fighting, and everything. Kind of like a any attention is better than no attention type of pursuit. But I'm not a nutrition guy, but there is a lot to be learned about the effect on your brain when it comes to the things that you eat. Of course, anyone in this audience probably already knows that, but I'm talking about ADHD here, and so it's important to understand that there's been a lot of studies done on things like food dye, for instance. And this was another kind of shocking thing that I discovered in it. And I'm not the one that discovered it, but I discovered it for myself, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right. Right.
And through my research, I discovered that they're putting food dye in the pills, the Adderall pills. And the studies have been done that show that the petroleum byproduct of like the food dyes, like red 40 and blue 1 and yellow 5 and all these that are in food everywhere you go. I mean, look, I mean,
In America, yeah.
yeah, I mean, in
Not in
America,
Europe. They outlawed them in Europe.
well, everywhere I go, because I don't
Right.
leave
Right. Yeah.
America,
Right.
because
Right.
I'm American. And um,
But they're trying to attack the Americans' brains with
sure.
that stuff.
Because
They
we're
put
the
it in
ones
all
that
the
need
food.
to. So this is why this is the whole new world order aspect of it, because
Yes.
we're the front, we're the last ones. I mean, we're the ones that are stopping. I mean, I mean, in essence, or like in spirit, we're the ones stopping the complete control of the globe by these new world order fanatics
Right.
who have this sick, fucking weird agenda. And so, like, it's yeah, I
That's
mean, when it's in everything that we're eating, or maybe not everything that we're eating, but in a lot of the foods and everything like that, that children are getting, these food dyes. Um, I mean, even in like chocolate pudding, for instance, they put food dye in chocolate pudding to make it look brown, because the way that they make, like the what do you call it? I don't even know the brand name. I've never even had it in my house. But the little cups, the whatever
snack pack.
snack pack. Yeah. Um,
Gross.
they put food dye in that, because if they didn't, what they're actually making in the factory, it's green. So they put red food dye in it to make it look brown, because red and green together is brown, right?
Right.
And
Pretty
so,
much.
I mean, in some shades or hues.
It's like black or whatever, but it's still, yeah, pretty much the same thing.
So I'm just saying that, like, we gotta pay, if we want solutions, we got to start paying attention to what the kids are eating first and foremost, and then how they're being treated, and what kind of level of respect that they have. Are they heard, and like all these other things. They're just little people,
Right.
they're just little people. They're just trying to figure it out.
And
They got a
these
lot to figure out.
are going to be a lot of the topics that we're going to be getting into, like help having it, like being able to listen and like focusing on their perspective and like, um, you know, uh, I see the future of this to be going into many different realms. This one was very good and we're still doing, I'm not stopping yet, um, but this one is great because to understand how the school system isn't only dominating our minds in the curriculum, they're also dominating our minds in like the function of its internal processes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's profoundly like scary for an
Well, if they if
anarchist.
if they can't get someone to obey and they'll go under the skin.
Ugh.
You know, they'll go inside and they'll get you from the
Right.
inside. You know,
Right.
they'll find a way. You know, and you know, I don't know. It's definitely not right, and people should be really cautious about sending their kids to public school and understand the risk. I mean, we take risks with everything that we decide to do, of course, but um, I want people to understand the and people do need to understand it in this light. And it doesn't make me happy to say this, and it's like really it's tough to say this, but people need to understand the threat of violence that they're exposing their children to when they send them to public school, government school. It's really underplayed. People seem to think of it as a trivial matter. Like they have like, oh, this is how it goes. And that's kind of there's no more excuses. It's really important for people to understand that and to take it seriously. Things that happen in those buildings will forever affect the way that that child perceives the world, the trust that that child has in the world. And we aren't at a point in human history where we can play with that and just treat that like take it for granted, you know? If anything, the way things are going today with this intergenerational cultural conditioning, the way that everything's culminated into the present day, we have only but to understand that this attempt to let the government be in control of the schooling has been a catastrophe.
Yeah.
You look around and you go, where's the civilized society we were promised? It's nowhere to be found. And where do people learn how to largely where do people learn about how the world or our country at least operates or is supposed to operate, primary operating conditions, you know, and maybe not primary, but optimal operating conditions. And we have really poor operating conditions, and people are taught to tolerate this. Where are they taught to tolerate it? There's
Right.
only one answer. Government schools is where people are learning to tolerate what we have to tolerate today. And it's a catastrophe. Oh my God. So yeah, that's what people need to really understand is what you're exposing your children to is a slave factory. And yeah, we shouldn't tolerate it.
That's very well said. A slave factory, man. And that's what government wants is slaves. And like everybody always looks at, oh yeah, schooling, the Prussian schooling, they wanted people to be factory workers, but really they wanted them to be slaves. Those soldiers were perfect slaves. They would go give their life for the state. And all
Well, if
the
you
other
really just
states,
like hone in on the bullseye, you know, like people like to hover over the target and they're like, okay, I'm just to the left of it, I'm just to the right of it. It's like, oh, they're working in the factories or they're doing the soldier thing and whatever.
right.
Let's hit it right on the bullseye. All of those things can be summed up in one description. They are training people to be obedient. To who? To outside authority. They're not seeking for logical, they're not doing things through logical means. They're not looking for people to be logical. They're not training children to be logical because their system would fall apart if they did. Because children
Right.
are amazing logical computing machines. They can see
Yeah.
through things, they can figure out things out in ways that us adults are blind to. And if you just give them a chance, they could figure out the world and make it such a better place. But they
Yeah.
can't do that if you keep going and throwing them to the wolves, the same wolves that created the chaos. Like you keep doing it over and over again. If we want real change, we got to change it. You know, it's attributed to Einstein that well, the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Well, what are we doing? Look around you.
Mm.
This is not cool. So we got to change things. What do we change? I don't know. I'm not exactly sure, but I know that I know what I know about the public education system. Government schools are, I don't know, they're not doing any justice to the kids. I can't say it enough. I
I
get
get
so
you.
repetitive about it. I'm
I get it.
sorry.
But so, like, what do we change? Like, everybody, like, we can change ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And then when you look at your kids, you see yourself there too. And it's your job to mold that little kid or child. I don't mean kid. He's not a goat.
Man,
But sometimes they are,
might not
because
be
they're
a
not
goat, but they're trying
sheep.
to make
At
him into
least they're
sheep.
not sheep. Yeah, like, right, exactly. So I mean, we those they are also us, and we love them more than we love ourselves, and it's important to put real focus into, like, sure, it's fun to be free and anarchist and not fall for all that bullshit mind control, and it's good to be, like, aware of what's going on and laugh, haha, look at how they're doing that to those idiots. Like, you want your kid to not be one of those idiots, so it's really like that's the goal of our show, of this series, at least, is to, I mean, if we're going to affect the future, they are intergenerational. you know you can talk to other friends of this show, like, the Dark Occult has been working through generations upon generations of programming their kids. They got it down pat, and they know how to program your kids too. You know, S-
It's gonna take 2 generations of people to snap out of it before we see real
right,
change.
right. We need to have our own intergenerational care induced, not fear. Like, this is because I love you, kid, son, whatever, child. Don't call your kids, I guess, but still, like, you could aim that, like, because sure, we have the victory over owning ourself, but we want our kids to have victory and over owning themselves too.
Yeah.
And we can't be like, well, do it because I say so and I'm stronger, you know, because that's just going to train them to just, fall into the same law of the jungle that you're programming into them. You know what I mean? That the government wants you to program into them so that they can be controlled by this system they've got ready to catch them. Like, I was sent to jail for selling weed to an undercover officer. She was
You
cute.
dummy.
I know, but, like, this system was there ready to catch me. You know what I mean? I was a fool. I was so stupid. And it's all there ready to go. Just like the school system is so easy for parents to just drop their kids off and, like, oh, it's fine. I can't teach my kid. The system is ready to catch them and
Yeah.
to do what they will with them. And the awareness has to come from inside them. We need to teach them to be aware instead of being like, yeah, dad, I'm aware. Okay. It's like they have to come to that realization themselves. And so if we can not feed them the dyes, and if we can not give them, what they do at the well checks and stuff. We're streaming this, so I'm not going to say the words. um, but like, if we can keep them clean and clear, maybe that natural, sovereignty will be a flame that's not snuffed out, right?
Yeah, for sure. People might be wondering, like, what's the point of knowing all this? I mean, at this point, they might have some questions. You can reach out to me if you have questions. I mean, I try to give good advice from the heart on these matters. Uh, Ultimately, the decisions are yours to be made. Um, but it's important to know about this because when you have a child that is combative to the system has ways to stomp their boot on them harder, and they can't at the present moment in history. Um, they still legally need parents' consent to medicate children. So
Right.
for the time being, we use their own laws against them. We just say no. And the more people that say no, I mean, the better. It's really the power of no. And you know what? They work for us. You want my kid in public school? Well, you're gonna have to figure out a way to teach my kid. That's my kid as an individual. It's not a fucking cog in the machine. It's not a piece of your puzzle. It's not, you're not gonna shape them, mold them into what you want. You're gonna have to figure it out. Tailor fit a curriculum to his needs or her needs. And these artificial pharmaceutical drugs are no longer a part of the intervention. And it can't be. To the very least, try something natural. Try changing up the diet. Peter Bregan is a phenomenal psychiatrist
I agree.
and a huge advocate for bodily autonomy, and a huge advocate for pharmaceutical intervention as a last resort. And anyone that wants to know alternatives should look into Peter Bregan's work. And
He wrote some great books too.
oh yeah, I have some over here behind me. One of them is called "Talking Back to Ritalin," and it's all about like the alternatives that you can do, the resources you can exhaust before you rely on pharmaceutical drugs. So I always recommend people go and look into that for themselves, because you'll find things that you value that maybe I don't, and that work for you that maybe I don't even because we homeschool, like I don't even think about ADHD. I don't even think
Right.
about it, dude.
Right.
You don't even have to think about it, dude. So I don't know. I just want to encourage people to be on their toes, I guess, and keep their head on a swivel.
Yeah. Well, it's really important that we maintain our sovereignty, and that word no is the key to sovereignty. Uh, and if you can teach a kid to say no in school, then you can teach him to say no to cops, and you can teach him to say no. It's a good little training ground for that kid to play around with authority. The teacher, all they got to do is be stronger and more dominant than a 4-year-old or 5-year-old, right? It's
Right.
like they're kind of low on the rung of society in dominance. So they got to dominate younger ones and smaller ones. How like wolves will choose the weak ones to prey upon.
Dude, I
Um,
know from experience how fucking absolutely it's just like gratifying it is to confuse the ever living hell out of these teachers when you pass with all flying colors every single test they put in front of you, but you never hand in homework. You
oh, I
never
did
pay
that.
attention in
Yeah.
class, or like
Right.
quote unquote pay attention in class, but
Yeah.
like I pass every test somehow, and they're like, I don't understand. Well, how are you doing this? And I'm just like, just make
Yeah,
a
I would
dude,
I would listen. I wouldn't even take notes. I would
yeah.
listen, and then I can repeat it. Like that's all they want from you. Like and that's then you pass that test from the bush, and then it wasn't just him. It was like each one after that kind of kicked the can further down the line into this
Well, I mean,
new.
Obama with the No Child Left Behind Act, Obama kind of reformed it a little bit, and then
Right.
nothing really happened after that. He didn't really do
That's
much.
why it ended at 16, 17, right? And then it kind of went down to 6 million instead of 6.8 or whatever on that first chart that we had, right? 2016, 17 is the Obama time.
No, that was Trump.
16. Oh, right, right. I'm thinking 12. Yeah, right.
Well, I
Trump
mean,
time.
Trump got
You're right.
elected
I'm
in
sorry.
2016, but
Oh,
like
I forget how
during
old we are, dude. I'm
during
sorry.
during the first Trump administration is when we see this increase in public and homeschooling. The increase in
Right,
homeschooling.
right, right,
So I mean, up to then there was an increase in an ADHD diagnosis.
right. So Obama helped push it up the line and made it up. Yeah,
Yeah, I
because
mean,
he was like
and
the
then
12.
and then of course, you look at the doctors and everybody that are getting kickbacks from the pharmaceutical companies for selling the drugs and all that stuff too. So there's incentives in all of the corners of the authority, people or whatever, the authoritarian body all corners of it. They're all working against you for money and power and control and all this stuff, you know, and who suffers? An innocent child that is trying to just do good, you know,
Yeah. Be
and
loved and
some
like
kids do need
listened
help,
to and like,
you know. I know some
yeah.
kids need help, and I know that I know that it's exhausting, and I know that from experience. I was the kid that needed help. I suffered from a severe head injury when I was about 8 years old, and it it could have done something to my brain. You know, it could have damaged. I mean, I was in the hospital, and I could have died. So I mean, these things happen, and things get hurt, and you can't see all the injuries, and you know, and brain scans come back, and it's like, oh, there's activity in this brain or a lack of it in this part of the brain, and where before it wasn't like that, maybe. So I do not ever disregard the fact that, you know, some brains just, they're just not receiving the signal, and maybe some kids need help, you know. It's just a truth of the world. It's just a matter of like what you're willing to do as a parent, and what and if you're informed enough to really make informed consent on behalf of a child. And we have a duty. We have a moral obligation to be informed when we're making decisions that affect these little people. So
Yeah.
that's the goal. That's the entire goal, is to
Yeah,
make
that's what we're
sure that
doing
when
here
like
today.
is that like when we're up against these control freaks, people like, and all of this is for absolute control, because the ends justify the means in their eyes, these utilitarian fucks. And so like they think that it's okay, because at the end of all this, they'll have they'll have their like, what do you call it, like
World
global
order.
panopticon,
Right.
and so it'll all be good.
Right.
But they can't do it if people understand voluntarism, and if they hold those principles really close, and they hold them up higher than any sort of water level, you know, that they could try to drown you in with their control. You just hold those principles up a little bit higher, you know, you can't drown, and they can't get you. And so that's what this is all about, you know.
Yeah, this is beautiful.
And the reason why it's important to talk about the children is because they're the ones that are going to inherit this place after we're gone. So we have a duty. You know, I always bring up this quote that's attributed to this like French philosopher, mathematician guy or whatever. Or well, no, not mathematician. Sorry, he's like a priest. And he said, "Blessed are those who plant trees, who under whose shade they will never sit." And so, basically, what that means is that like we're looking to the future to create the future to be a little bit better for those kids that are gonna get this place after we're done with it. Because I don't freak out about it. And I'm not always just in the moment, in the present moment. Like, dude, like cause and effect is real. And you got to understand that like the effect part happens after, and that's the future, and it's going to happen. It's coming. And what is it going to look like? What do we want it to look like? Really? Do we want it to be a hellscape where everyone's like, oh, I got a social credit score. Can I take the bus today? Or do we want to be able to like, you know, have freedom still, some sort of freedom? We want to increase that freedom. If we want to increase that freedom, you're going to have to learn about voluntarism, because you're going to have to learn about how to operate with objective morality and under natural law, where you're not going around trampling over other people's fucking rights and you know, and abusing people. It's not right. So that's what this is all about, and teaching kids how to do that. So you can just as easily teach your kids how to be a voluntarist as it is to teach them how to be a statist.
Yeah.
And so like when you really weigh out your options there, you want people to grow up thinking it's okay to coerce and steal, or do you want people to grow up thinking that, you know, charity is a good thing and that you should look out for your neighbors and that you wouldn't want to do anything to somebody that you wouldn't want done unto you. And so like which one do you want? These are the things we have to weigh out here.
But I gotta control my neighbors. I just want to vote and make them in a cage.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry.
when you vote, I mean, when you participate in democracy, you're the master and you're the slave simultaneously. And that's no way to live. Natural law is greater than just the way that human beings behave. There's going to be things that happen around us, and it's going to affect us as well. And what we're seeing in the way that the way that things are playing out right now, the mere existence of government itself, the pendulum swings back and forth, and the existence of government is making it swing in a direction that we see all this chaos erupting. It's because of the forced order that government is trying to impose upon people, that the chaos is erupting. And there's people out there that know that the chaos is going to erupt, so they keep imposing the forced order. All right. So that's what the plan is because if they can get the chaos to be so great, so much chaos, then they can implement complete control, and people will beg for it.
It's
So
coming.
this is what we're up against.
Yeah.
It's a huge black pill.
Yeah.
But like Sean, like everyone that knows Sean and I knows, like we're all about digesting that black pill and turning it into a
That's right.
beautiful white one.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, we had some people should go back and look at what we've done. We had 8 episodes of Black Pill Digest, which was a running series that we had, and lots of guests and great topics, and that was great. But yeah, we're not afraid to recognize the truth. That's
Mhm.
really important. And our like you said, we have to like you know it's the we're like Sisyphus pushing this huge rock and like but it's hardest to get the heavy weight in motion from stop. Once it's rolling, then it's easier to keep it rolling.
Mm.
And like, so it seems so tough for us because we're like we're coming from a stop. We're like coming from straight slavery, you know what I mean, our parents are like they were taken over, you know what I mean? They weren't thinking for themselves. Like it's up to us to like start pushing the rock towards freedom again. And we don't want it to be like, I mean, it's fun to talk about guillotines and stuff, but that's not gonna do anything. It's just gonna put more violent people in charge. And obviously it's a mind thing. We have to
Yep.
like so really that's where we have to work on the minds of the minds that we have access to and are in charge of, at least stewards for. Those impressionable minds are there, being like they are sponges, and whether it's intentional or not, they are learning from us. And so we can refine our actions and our will towards making them free. Then at least that little individual piece of the next generation will be free too.
Mhm.
And then if all of us can do that together, we can have like a large number, and it's starting, I think. Like you said, there's more homeschoolers happening. There's more since COVID. People are falling out of the system of education. um, when I went and bought swim trunks for my son this year, because we went swimming, teach him to swim, and I assumed that I would have to cut out the internal like underwear portion,
Oh yeah, right, yeah.
and I I cried when I discovered that it wasn't that mesh anymore. They changed the design because enough little boys are intact and have extra skin that can get like stuck in the little mesh holes,
Yeah.
and it's like harmful for intact little boys to have that type of
Yeah.
swimsuit. So I figured I was just going to have to cut it out, and then I go to cut it out and I look and oh my god, the front is different, it doesn't have that mesh. I was like, wow, it's changing, like it's slowly changing. So like it's almost like, oh my god, it's not happening, but it is. So we just got to keep pushing, and we got to, keep up the momentum. And so that's why I look forward to the next one of these. And I might end up being on your show if I have something to talk about. You'll be on my show if you have something to bring to the table. So that's how we're looking forward to the future. And we don't have any like there's no deadlines and stuff. It's just kind of open ended. And anything that we think would fit into this topic of parenting in the New World Order, we're going to bring it to the table for you listeners to contemplate. Is there anything else that you want to talk about before we go?
No, I just want to remind people to stay vigilant and to really just respect their children and
Look again.
yeah.
Well, God bless you, dude. I mean, this has been great, and thank you so much for talking to us about your own personal life, and being vulnerable enough to share. And I appreciate that. And hopefully we can learn from your perspective on, because I only did the ADHD drugs recreationally myself. It was never imposed on me, and it was my will to do so. And that's not the case for you. And so
Right.
it's a totally different experience that when we learn from you. And thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. I can't remember if I actually drove this point home or not, but what you just
Talk.
said,
Say it.
just 1 minute, and
All right.
what you just said is pretty appropriate. To add to, I think I don't know, maybe it needs to be added to the point I was trying to make earlier, but yeah, these drugs giving to children, you're creating drug addicts. You know, that's what you're doing.
That's what I was doing when I was taking them. I was being a drug addict.
I mean,
Right? Yeah.
when I eventually, got into my later teen years and through my early 20s, copious amounts of cocaine.
Because the dopamine.
Something about uppers just felt right. I'd been given them since I was 9. So yeah, you gotta be careful. That's what I mean. Like, be vigilant. Understand. Like, think things through. You know.
And the young brain becomes an addict easier than an older brain.
Yeah.
That's proven to be true, no matter what the drug is.
Mm-hmm. I
So
think
it's
that's it.
better to wait till you're older before you start trying those. But anyway, yeah, thank you for that. And nobody wants their kids to be drug addicts. Jesus.
No,
I mean,
well, I don't think so.
so that's good that we said that into their ears before we stopped this. That's great. So thank you, James. And everybody visit voluntaristacademy.com. There is a donate page where you can buy them a coffee or some PayPal or even Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So please share with James and his family and help him to, keep striving this battle of making money enough to keep mom at home and the kids out of school. And you're
Well, any donations that I get go toward making sure that my content creation operation can keep going and growing. I'll be
right.
honest with everybody. I have a pretty well-paying job. I don't need money to pay for my house or my groceries.
But you
But
can't just spend it willy-nilly on this other hobby. You have to have it pay for itself. Like,
yeah, so if I want to keep my content creation operation going and growing, sometimes I require a little assistance. So if you want to assist me in that effort, then you can go to my website and figure out a way that best suits you to help me
right.
with my content creation
James is humble,
aspirations.
but you're humble, but I know your old house is like having troubles, and like I know there's a long list of things that you know. But anyway, everybody needs donations, man. Like, but anyway, God bless you, man, and I hope that everybody looks forward to the next one because this is a topic. And please share with us if you have some ideas of things that you want to discuss or you want us to talk about. Uh, I'm not opposed to having guests either if we wanted to do that. It's kind of open ended, and I like that idea. And I trust you, James, and wherever you want to bring us and the listeners' ears. Like, I think it's a great idea. So I look forward to that.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. You're very welcome. And thank you, listeners, for having us in your ears. And we appreciate the time and attention. And we hope to see you next time on Wake the Dead. Cheers.